Hello, hello, fearless listeners. Are you ready for another episode of Let Fear Bounce? It's the podcast that's all about conquering challenges and facing our fears. I'm your host, Kim Langling, and each week we'll dive into inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you turn your fear into your greatest ally. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's discover how to make fear our bouncing board towards a life filled with endless possibilities right here on Let Fear Bounce. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is I've been looking forward to this conversation. My guest today is Dani Nichols, and she's coming to, well, for me anyway, she's on the other side of the country. And I'm talking United States folks, for those folks that are listening that don't reside in the US. But my name is Kim Langling. I am the host of Let Fear Bounce, and I'm so glad that you're deciding to spend just a small part of your day with myself and my special guest, as I said, Dani Nichols. She is an award-winning writer from Central Oregon, folks, and she has a children's book out, which is also an award-winning book, and the book is called Buzz, the Not So Brave. And I cannot wait to talk about that because the not so brave, doesn't that imply that there might be fears in there? And we got to see how those fears bounced for him. So looking forward to talking about that. And she is also, when she's not writing, she works as a certified adaptive horsemanship instructor. She's also a passionate cook, an easy laugher, and a lover of country music, good wine, open water, and strong coffee. Oh, love to read that. Strong coffee, caffeine, gotta have it to keep you going. And she writes about adoption, horses, marriage, friendship, and above all, the relentless nature of redemption. I've been so excited to talk to you because, oh my goodness, there's just so many things in your bio that I resonate with. Welcome, Dani. Welcome to Let Fear Bounce.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on. Obviously, I wrote a book about bravery and overcoming fear. And so I was stoked to see the title of your podcast.
I was excited to see the title. I love children's books and I love talking to authors. As an author myself, I love seeing how other authors' brains and hearing how their brains work, especially the children's books authors. Now, you wrote a book called Buzz the Not So Brave, and it's about a horse, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I tell people it's an embellished true story about my quarter horse. So he really is not so brave. He's a real horse. He really lives at my house here in Central Oregon. And yeah, he basically, everything that's in the book is something that really happened, but I make it fun for kids. So he sees something that he thinks is scary. And in the book, it's like a big illustration of like a ghost floating over the pasture. And in real life, it's a tarp. Yeah. And so he's always, everything is, he thinks it's something terrifying. You turn the page, you say, oh, Buzz, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a hay tarp. And so these are all taken from real life. Like he really is afraid of tarps. He really is afraid of garden hoses. He really is like, and then I actually had the experience of taking him to a cow working day, and he was so afraid of the cows. He did not want to go in with the cows. He was terrified. He's a quarter horse. He's built to work cows, but he was not into it. And we worked on it together. We had the whole day together to figure it out. And he tried everything he could think of to not have to do it. And finally, the climax of the book is Buzz is human. You never see my face. I'm a silhouette and a hat. But Buzz is human, tells Buzz, I believe in you, Buzz. We can do this. And so Buzz learns to be brave and goes in with the cows. And yeah, so that's the end of the book. But
you know, what an awesome idea for a book, because that could resonate with children as well as adults.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually, one of the greatest gifts of writing this book has been getting to talk to educators and like teachers and librarians and other horsemanship instructors, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, who are trying to help their kids figure out how to overcome fear. And they see the book as a way to talk to them about it and kind of work through that with them in a way that's It's not preachy. I'm not shoving anything down anybody's throat. It's a sweet story about a cute horse. The illustrations are amazing. It's like such a beautiful book. It's hardcover, glossy pages. So it's really beautiful and fun to look at for kids. But it's a really, really great teaching tool. And so that's been an unexpected joy in writing the book. I didn't realize how much of that I would get to experience. So it's been really fun.
And to have an illustrator that you fell in love with, that helps, because my goodness, for children's books especially, the illustrations really bring the story to life.
Yeah. Yeah, she was amazing. So she was a friend of a friend, was just introduced to me when I had this idea, like, hey, maybe she might be interested. And of course, she's also a mom. She's here in Oregon as well. She just lives a couple hours away from me. And she used to be a clothing designer for Adidas. And she was like looking for a way to kind of do something from home and still, be a mom with her kids. And she had quit Adidas a while back, and she said to me, well, I've never done a kids book before. I don't really know. I'm kind of new to this, but sure, I'll give it a go. And of course, I mean, she way undersold herself. She's become a dear friend. The illustrations are gorgeous. I mean, they evoke Oregon, if you've ever been to this part of the country. A beautiful color palette, really cool. The horses are very true to horses. She actually came to my ranch and met Buzz and met some of the other horses. I got to give her kids horseback rides, which was really fun. And yeah, so it's been a really sweet partnership. So that's one of the cool things about it too.
And how neat that, and then I know other authors out there that might be listening, how your writing journey unfolds and the people that you end up meeting along the way, and that might also become part of your tribe, shall we say,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
just someone that you can reach out to and brainstorm with, or what have you, or ask a question or say, hey, could you read this chapter? Let me know if I'm like so off, or if it's even readable. It's just what a neat experience for you. But then also you're able to actually introduce the the horse that started this whole idea for your book to actual people, and then her kids were able to come and you're able to meet them and
Yeah.
spend some quality time. How awesome.
Yeah.
What a neat story right there.
Yeah, it's been very sweet. And like I said, there's so many unexpected joys along the way. Like I never thought I would write kids books. I've been a journalist and an essayist for many years. And so this was totally kind of out of left field for me, and it's just been a blast. It's so fun. So, yeah.
So do you have, on the back burner, are there any more Buzz stories coming out in the future?
He's always having adventures. Like I said, he lives at my house. So I'm always thinking there's always something percolating. I would love to do another Buzz book. It kind of just depends on like timing and, if Kristen, my illustrator, and I can kind of get our schedules together and figure it out. It's definitely something I would like to do. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm still selling Buzz. Obviously, I still do a lot of book events and school events, and I was just at the Central Oregon Agriculture Show a couple of weekends ago. So I do a lot of things like that. I go to horse shows and stuff too. And then I also have a Substack that I write on at least once a week. And so that kind of keeps me writing, and keeps me kind of in touch with my audience. And so I'm always doing essays and things like that as well. So it's kind of, yeah, it's sort of a multifaceted thing. But yeah, I would love to write another Buzz book, is the short answer to that question.
Well, I love how you said, he's always having adventures, because that's how I describe where I live. It's the realm, and I am the queen of it,
Uh-huh.
because it's my realm. And all of the critters that reside here, they always provide food for thought, because they're always going on adventures and I get to witness them. You
Uh-huh.
know, whether it's
Uh-huh.
the mama deer out there with their twins and my dog out there, or chasing critters, or whatever it is that they have a mind to get up to, because they like to keep us humans on our toes. I have
Exactly.
found. So I have all
Exactly.
kinds of stories that are constantly percolating about all the critters that reside in the realm. So yeah,
Yes.
one of the I typically write nonfiction, but one of these days a fiction book will be coming out about the realm and all the critters that lives within you.
Oh, I love that. So good.
And you know what I always thought would be so cool is to talk to other folks that have critters in their stories, and those critters could meet each other in different books.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah, I'm
That-
totally an animal person. I'm always anthropomorphizing. Like, it's so funny. Like Buzz is such a character. When I first got him, I thought, oh my gosh, this horse is just one of a kind. And that was actually something that I actually had to make a conscious decision about when I wrote Buzz the Not So Brave, was I had to make a decision to let him be a horse, because I was very tempted to like make him into kind of a cartoon animal who like had all these thoughts and feelings, which he does. Obviously, animals are sentient beings, they have thoughts and feelings, but I had to let his thoughts and feelings be horse thoughts and feelings and not people thoughts and feelings with a horse face.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dog Dexter, the dog that I have now, he is my office manager, and he has his own page on my website, and he's the one who keeps me in line.
Yeah.
But the way he talks is the way he talks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dexter talks, not how me as a human would talk. So, and my
Hmm.
other dog, Digger, prior to him, had him for 14 years. Just, oh, he was that dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That one that will stick with me forever. But he also, I wrote conversations between him and I for years. And and he had a following on Facebook for years. And people, and he was always, Digger was like the old man. So he was always sharing his wisdom.
Yeah.
Totally different dogs, totally different personalities, but I always hear animals how I feel they're speaking.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So it sounds like with Buzz, that's how your brain worked with your horse. You had to remind yourself, well, wait a minute, this has to be his thoughts, not my thoughts put into a horse face.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And I think it gives us more compassion for our animals when we see them as, they're unique beings, but Buzz will never not be afraid because horses are built to be afraid. That's their survival instinct, is to run, to get away. They're prey animals. And so it's kind of, I think it's a sweet, he can learn to have courage within the confines of being a horse, right? Just like we as people, and this is what I talk to classes about all the time, is we can learn to be brave within the reality that we live in, within our families and our schools and our lives. That we don't have to be brave to go be the president. We can be brave to be right here and now. And I think it gives us a better sense of self-compassion and compassion for others when we recognize like how those differences actually make us stronger versus forcing everybody to have bravery look like a very specific thing, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense to me. And I am so glad that you shared that. Thank you. Animals do speak. They might not just speak in human words, but if you pay attention as a human, if you pay attention, they are telling you what it is that they need, what it is that they're fearful of, what it is that they love, what it is that they want, if you just pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think that's also a piece of it. Like, I think that was, going back to, I said I had to give Buzz his own voice, not make him into a human. I think that's a piece of it because I wanted to teach kids a little bit. I mean, one book can't do this, but give them a piece of the puzzle of having some understanding for how horses think that's different from how we think, and starting to understand that communication and understand what they're trying to tell us, without kind of, another sort of cartoon version in which every animal is just another version of a human. I don't know, I wanted to do something different with that, and I think that was part of why, is I wanted to help people, adults and kids, understand this language, which is it's like learning a different language. It's a totally new way of being.
Well, and it's also teaching respect for animals.
Mhm. Mhm.
And for you said that you're a big animal lover. I am too. I think books like yours and just how you were, explaining why you wrote it the way you did shows your love and respect for animals. And,
Mhm.
you said it's only one book. Well, by golly, sweet pea, that one book, it might not change the world, but for each little reader or adult reader that might be reading it to their little, it's changing their slice of the world.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you never know how far that's going to reach. Maybe, you're right. I'm one person. I cannot possibly change the entire world, but you know what I can do? I can change a small slice of that one person's world. And that
Mhm.
is just as big. And your book, I
Mhm.
think, is doing that. So go you.
Thank you. What a kind thing to say. Thank you so much. Just as you said, for every little story that's shared, it may not be much, but it's a little slice of compassion and courage and hope. It's a little slice of that just says, like, the world isn't as dark as you might think, which is, again, goes back to the whole point of Buzz the Not So Brave, that he thinks it's a rattlesnake and it's just a garden hose. You really don't need to be afraid of it. And it's such a kind of, it's goofy and funny and disarming, but it's a way to talk to, kids of all ages about the things that we think are really scary, that when you step back and you take a good look, it's okay. It's going to be
Right.
okay.
Well, I remember when my daughter was little and she first started sleeping in her big girl bed. So it wasn't the crib, it was her toddler bed.
Mhm.
And I had her little robe hanging on the back of her door. Well, when the door is only half open and the lights are all off, but there's a night light on in the hallway, the shadow that that little robe would make on the wall was scary. And it'd be, "Mommy, mommy, monster, monster." And of course, I would run in, turn on the light, there's no monster.
Mm.
And so it took me a couple times to realize she does see a monster. And oh my goodness, with the lights off, because then I finally said, "I'll just sit here with you for a bit." Turned the light off, and I'm sitting there with her in her little bed. And she'd start, "Oh," and pointing, "Mummy, mummy." And then I looked and I went, "Oh my goodness, that does look like a monster. But guess what? It's not. Let's go check it out together." So, we introduced ourselves to the shadow.
Oh, I love that.
And then moved the robe around to make the shadow look a little different and said, "See, it's just in how you see it, sweet pea." So, that's what it reminds me of, because their fears are real,
Yeah. Yeah.
just like Buzz's fears of the snake. He thinks it's a snake, but it's just a hose. That's so real.
Mhm.
And for little ones, that's so real because I've always remembered, I've never forgotten that she was so fearful that there was this monster. Every time I turned off the light, the monster came. And why was I letting this monster in there every time? And I felt so horrible. You know, kids can make you feel like the worst parent on the planet, I tell you. But there's,
Can they
the
ever?
fears are so real. The fears, so you have to acknowledge them,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think that your book does that. And yeah, I'm just so, I have to get myself a copy. Got to get myself a copy of this book. Um, I no, I love meeting people like you that put what others might look at and say, "Well, that's just, simple." This actually, no, it's not. Because for little ones, it's not simple, it's huge because
Right.
everything in their world is big.
Right.
They're the
Yep.
littles.
Yep. Yep. It's kind of like that. There's a saying that goes around now and then that says, listen to your kids. If you want your kids to tell you the big things when they're older, listen to all the little things now, because to them they've always been big. And I think it's the same thing with fears and with anxieties. I think there's a fine line. Sometimes I have to tell my kids, "I'm sorry you're scared, but we just got to do this."
Right? Yeah.
But it's also that understanding that, like, I'm not going to tell you you're not scared, but I am going to tell you that you can be brave, you know?
Fear is healthy.
Yeah.
It's healthy to have a little bit of fear, but it's also healthy to, face it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you come out the other side and you're like, "Oh my gosh, look at you. You're a superhero."
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Fear keeps us safe in many ways. That's an okay thing. It's a
And well,
survival
it's built
mechanism.
into us for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I could talk about your book and all the little lessons you have in there all day long. But we're going to run out of time. I want to pop over to the second thing I wanted to touch on today with you. Certified adaptive horsemanship instructor. That's a
Yeah.
mouthful because I have to say it
Yeah.
really slowly so I don't bungle it up. But share with my listeners what that is and why it is you do that.
Yeah. So I'm a cowgirl, have been forever. I grew up on a cattle ranch in Southern Oregon, and I worked as a wrangler. I worked around horses for most of my professional life. And I went to college and got a journalism degree. And then I graduated college in 2006, got jobs in journalism, worked in publishing. And then when the 2008 crashes started happening, publishing went in the tank. I lost my job. And I really found myself saying, like, I don't know what I'm going to do because everything I know how to do is essentially over. Like, newspapers are dying. Like, I don't know what to do. And the thing that kept coming to me was horses. I had spent all my life doing horses, and I kind of thought like that chapter was closing because I'm going to go be a professional now. And I think it kept coming to me like, I just want to do something with horses. Like, that feels like something I should return to. And so I got into therapeutic horsemanship, which is or adaptive horsemanship. It's called both, but it's essentially teaching about horses and horsemanship to people with all levels of varying disabilities and special needs. So it can be anything from a teenager with anxiety and depression to a nonverbal autistic child to an older adult with Alzheimer's to some people who just honestly need support and need a community and need someone to talk to and need to get out and need like the extra sort of adaptive framework that kind of helps them to be honestly to be braver because horses are big and scary and that's understandable. But horses are also really powerful. They're herd animals. They're highly emotional. They're very aware of the feelings of the beings around them. So if you come into a horsemanship class and you have some anxiety or you're feeling angry or whatever other feelings you may have, your horse is going to know that. And that's a really powerful thing, especially for people who are trying to access their feelings or figure out how to deal with them. It's really, really helpful to have a horse reflect that back to you and be like, you seem stressed.
Yeah. I think a
Yeah.
lot of animals, well, I know my dogs do, because
Yeah.
I live with PTSD,
Hmm.
and with that comes anxiety at times, and sometimes it's like seemingly out of the blue.
Hmm.
M- my dogs, both Digger and Dexter, have both been able to, at times even, catch it before I realize it's creeping up.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and they'll,
Yeah.
come up and nudge me or, keep, nudge there. I have big dogs, so they nudge me with their heads. And then I realize, oh, I'm starting to feel a little tight in my chest. Oh, they're redirecting me. They're letting me know, hey,
Mhm.
I'm here. And it refocuses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Animals are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah. 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 And I think that they can access, if a human came up to you and said, you seem stressed, I think your guard would come up, right? Because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our image. We want to be put together. But if an animal gives you that little nudge and says, hey, buddy, I think there's a softness that we have towards animals that I think is created within us. And so I think that that's a huge piece of why it works. It's kind of it's a tender spot, I think, for most people. And so it really helps us sort of access that and be more open to change, more open to instruction, more open to even our own intuition, because the animal is sort of already vulnerable, and so they sort of welcome us into that vulnerability as well.
Well, and I
Um,
think that their feelings that they share with you, they're always sincere.
mhm.
And that's a
Yeah,
big difference from what humans show.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They can't lie. They can't lie.
Right.
And horses have a 5-second memory. So, if you stress them out, 5 seconds later, they're like, huh? So that's a good thing. That's actually a really positive attribute because they forgive. They sort of instantly move on and give you another chance. And because they're herd animals, they want to be in relationship with you, which is really powerful. And so, a lot of times we do veteran services for people. We'll do all kinds of substance abuse groups, all this kinds of things. And sometimes you'll have somebody who's pretty tough and they don't really want to talk about it and they don't really want to be with their horse and they'd rather just sit in the van and wait until their hour's up and go back, whatever. And the horse almost always wins that argument, because if you can get that tough teenager who thinks there's something else to come and stand in the arena with a horse, it won't be too long before that horse has won him over.
Yeah. Is there counseling involved in that?
Yeah, so that depends. It's a couple different models. So what I do is I teach adaptive horsemanship. So you come in, you learn to ride or just be with horses. You can also do groundwork if you're not comfortable riding or if you can't ride for physical limitations. And so I'll just kind of teach that and be available for that. And then we also have equine assisted mental health, which is you actually have a therapist and a horse and a client, and they're kind of all working together towards those mental health goals. And so sometimes they'll have an instructor like myself in those situations if the person wants to learn to ride, or if they're going to do some more like kind of in-depth horse work. But sometimes, honestly, they're kind of just standing in the pasture, and just the presence of the horses helps people to feel more comfortable than like sitting in an office. So that can work really well too. So it kind of depends on the model. It depends on what people are looking for. Sometimes we'll do both, sometimes it's a combo. It just kind of depends.
So do you do this with an organization or do you do this from your own home?
Now I work for an organization called Healing Reins. It's here in Central Oregon. And I have been part-time as an instructor for them for almost 10 years. Yeah, I really love them. I actually donate a portion of the proceeds from Buzz the Not So Brave to them. And yeah, and so it's just something I'm passionate about. I make most of my living as a writer. And then this is just kind of it's sort of my fun outdoorsy job where I get to just go and play with horses and meet wonderful people and kind of give back to my community. So it's kind of my little outlet job. And it's a way for me to sort of stay, writers can be hermits and I would try to avoid that. So
I hear you. I've often said it wouldn't take much at all for me to be a complete recluse. To just, I'm quite content in my realm. But then
Yep.
I always, it's like, Kim, you have to go out amongst humans. You must go out amongst humans. And I'm involved in my community just like you are with yours. And I've got a book I love how you said a portion of your proceeds goes to Healing Reins, because the second book's coming out, but Paw Prints, it's a Paw Prints series all about animals, and portions of that are going to a no-kill animal shelter in my area.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Very cool.
Yeah. So, those types of books to me, that's a mission of love, not we're not world famous writers.
Right.
So it's not like we're selling millions and millions of copies, but and I chuckle, I'm like, well, I'm giving them a donation that they weren't getting before. So, and I've gotten to be friends with the owner of the organization, and she's been doing it for over 20 years, has a huge passion for saving animals. And she goes into some pretty scary situations to save animals, hoarding situations and abuse and neglect. And I personally couldn't do it. It would
Yeah.
rip me apart because I would never sleep again.
Yeah.
And I said, so the way that I can support you is by selling as many books as I can get out there sold, and you get a portion of the proceeds, and she's like,
Yeah.
that's perfect. She goes, because without people like you, I couldn't keep on doing what I'm doing for over 20 years.
Yep. Yep. Totally. And it's also a wonderful way to raise awareness for those things you care about, because whenever I'm at a school or a book fair or a horse show or anything like that, I always tell people, I try to support Healing Reins. And people go, oh, what's that? Or if they have heard of it, they, oh, my son rode there, my daughter went there, oh my gosh, I know someone who went there. And it's a sweet reminder for people of something that's so important to me and so important to our community. But yeah, everybody's got a lot going on. They don't always remember all these things. And so it's kind of a way for you and I to use our platform, whatever it may be, as small as it may be, to sort of advocate for the things we care about, you know?
Right. And again, we're making a difference in our small slice of the world,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know?
Exactly.
Now, can you imagine if everybody did that?
Yeah.
What a different world this would be,
Yep. Yep.
you
Yeah.
know? I mean, it almost makes you want to break out into song, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What a different world it would be.
Yeah.
What there is a song, What a Wonderful World.
Is it Louis Armstrong?
Louis Armstrong, you are right. I was going to say, you know what song I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what a wonderful world it would be, huh? But you know
Oh,
what? As long as there's people like yourself and myself, and I know that you probably know a lot of, you know more than one or two more. As long as we keep doing that and spreading our messages and our slice of the world, it will eventually. I firmly believe it might not be in our lifetime, but it will eventually make a huge impact.
yeah, and I think that it's all about that, like every small slice, just as you said, every classroom you speak to, every kid you read the book to, it's all making a difference. And it's such a, I don't know, it's very humbling actually. When you start to think about it, you're like, oh boy, this
Yeah, it
is a
is
big
humbling.
thing,
Yes. And anytime I have someone like email me or I run into someone that knows me and they'll be like, "Hey, I just read this that you wrote and you just brought me to tears and I'm so thankful that you shared that story," or
Mhm.
what have you. Every single time it is so humbling. And I'm a Christian. So I know that what I'm doing is not all of me,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that
Yep.
makes sense.
Oh, it makes
Um,
total sense. Yeah.
So, and I'm always very humbled and I'll be like, thank you. I was given a nudge and
Mhm.
that's how I always describe it. I was given
Mhm.
a nudge and I found that it's best if I follow those nudges.
Yeah. Totally. 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 Oh,
Because
I love that.
when I don't, I find myself, dazed and confused. So, so what is next for you, Danny?
Well, the thing that I'm working on right now is building up my Substack. So I'm really trying to work on that. I just introduced a paid option for subscribers. I will still have several free essays every month, but I'm also writing some paid work, which is a really exciting new opportunity for me. And yeah, so I'm just really building that. You can find it on my website if you're interested in it. It's wranglerdanny.com. Wrangler,
Share with
like,
the listeners what Substack is, because some folks might not know what that is.
yes, thank you. Yeah, you're right. So Substack is essentially, I used to blog back in the bad old days, right? And have a WordPress or Blogspot or whatever. And Substack is essentially like old school blogging, except that it's much more user friendly. It automatically goes to your email if you sign up for it. So that doesn't mean you have to read it every time. I'm sure some people just are too busy for it or whatever, but it does mean you're always kind of getting that reminder of like, oh, there's a new essay up or there's a new piece up I want to look at. And so it's kind of it's a little bit more on the reader's timeline, that where they get it and they can decide what to do with it. And then it also really supports writers because it has paid options. So, it's kind of like how the New York Times and the Atlantic and all these other publications are going to more of a pay to read model. That's what Substack is doing now, but for individual writers. So you just pay a small amount, the cost of a cup of coffee um, once a month, and then you get to read all of the stuff from whichever writers you like. So, and there's lots like Ruth Reichel, the great food writer, is on there, and there's a lot of really wonderful writers and editors and even publications that are starting on Substack. So it's kind of a cool new frontier for writers. And I've been writing on there for a couple years.
What a cool place for readers to find new favorite authors.
Exactly. Well, and that's part of it, is it's a way for readers to kind of get up close and personal with authors that they love. Another one that I follow that I love is Maggie Smith. She's a poet. Yeah, it's a really cool, it's very focused on readers and writers, which is a unique thing for a media platform. So it's a place for people who like to read and like to write, and or one or the other. Been on it for a couple of years, and I just recently moved some of my posts over to paid, and I'm really working on growing that right now, as well as continuing to sell buzz and kind of see what's next after that. But that's kind of my current project. So
Well, and you're also a wife and a mom.
yes.
So
Yeah.
you're busy.
Yes. Yeah. I have 3 kids at home. All 3 of my kids are adopted. And so that's a whole nother story that I'll probably write about someday.
And we'll have to have you back on to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also have a small ranch. So yes, we're trucking along out here.
I actually would love to have you back on to talk about the adoptive story with your children.
Oh, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I'd love that.
Yeah, because I'm sure that there's, fear involved in that as well.
Yes, there is. Yes, adoption is that is faith-making business, I tell you what.
Well, yeah, I bet. And I
Yeah.
don't know enough about it. So I would love to have you on because I'm sure there are many folks out there that are going that route and it might be very frustrating and
Mhm.
frustrating and
Yeah.
lots of
Yep.
fears and lots of tears and all kinds of stuff. And, maybe that's something we should have you back on to chat about, to
Yeah.
give a little bit of inspiration to those out there that might be in that boat right now.
Absolutely. Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, look at that. Look at us. Well, as we get ready to wrap this episode up, I ask all of my guests if they would please toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners, something that they can tuck away and carry with them. So, what would your
Mm.
nugget of hope be for the listeners today?
It's never too late to try again. I had so many missteps. I shared a little bit of my story of becoming an adaptive horsemanship instructor, which has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. But it came after a period of a lot of uncertainty and fear, and feeling like I didn't know what I was going to do with this journalism degree that I now felt was worthless. And it turned out that none of that was true. Being an adaptive horsemanship instructor did not mean I couldn't also be a writer. Stepping into this new career has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. Years fast forward 15 years, I had gotten rejected for a memoir that I wrote actually about the adoption of my kids, and was feeling very like, I don't know if I can do this. And I got a harebrained idea in the middle of the night to write a picture book about my quarter horse. And so just kind of went down the road, and it has again been a surprising, unbelievable joy and such a gift. And it's just been a wild ride. We've won 5 book awards with Buzz. We've sold 1,800 copies. It's just continued to grow and be powerful and amazing. And it's not because I'm so incredible. It's because I had the faith and the courage and the belief in God, the belief that He gave me a purpose for a reason, and that I shouldn't just give up. I shouldn't just crawl in a hole and say, well, I'm embarrassed and I'm going to go away, but to have the courage to walk into that. And so, yeah, my nugget is don't give up. It's never too late to try again. It's never too late to do something new. It's never too late to say, you know what? I got a wild hair. Let's write a kid's book. Like you
Exactly.
can.
And the thing is, that's been percolating for probably so long, but you never realized it. You just needed that extra nudge.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, and it's everything becomes something usable, right? Like in the end, it all comes around.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
If we don't, if, looking, and I was just talking the other day, if I look back on how my path, we'll call it a path, on how my path has been with all the potholes
Mm,
and all of those trips and falls and scariness and all, without all of that happening, I never would have gained additional strength
mm.
or courage or faith in myself or faith in anything
Yeah.
without all of that happening. And some of it you wouldn't wish on anyone. but sometimes life, you go through some really, really hard stuff.
Yeah.
But then, decades later, you look back and you're like, I could not possibly be doing what I'm doing, speaking about what I speak about, or writing what I write about unless I had gone through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was, it kind of, it makes sense. You might not agree with it.
Right.
But, I encourage folks to look back at your path, especially those that are, you're living in your purpose now. You found your passion and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to change my slice of the world,
Yeah.
Look back and see what it is that you went through. And then look at yourself in the mirror and say, holy cow, am I a strong person?
Yep. Yeah.
Holy cow. Look at the fears that I faced and I overcame. And then remind yourself, if you're having a bad day, this is my little nugget. I don't normally do this, but let's just toss it out there anyway. I had someone tell me, actually my therapist tell me, Kim, when you're probably one of the strongest women I've ever met. Look at what you've went through. She goes, so when you look in the mirror, you have to remind yourself you have a 100% success rate for getting through the tough stuff. And 100% is as good as it gets. And so if you look at it that way, wow, does that change the perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, if you're having a poopy day and everything's falling apart around you, but you're still standing, holy cow, you made it through another day. 100% success rate. Look at you. Look at you go,
Amen. I love that.
I tell you, sometimes you just got to pull up your big girl panties and keep on going.
Amen to that. Yeah, it's okay to be scared. You just got to saddle up anyway.
Yes. Okay. Do you listen to contemporary Christian music at all?
A little bit.
Have you ever listened to Stephen Curtis Chapman?
Oh yeah, years ago.
Okay, well, years ago he had a song, and it's like, saddle up your horses, we've got a trail to blaze.
I remember that song. Yes.
You just said saddle up, and that immediately came into my head. So
that's
saddle
hilarious.
up your horses, folks. It's time to blaze a trail.
That's right. That's right. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's such a good blast from the past. Yeah.
This has been an awesome conversation, Dani. I'm so glad that you were my guest today and that you were able to share a little bit of your day with myself and my listeners. So thank you very much for being with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.
Yay. And we will do it again. We will definitely do it again because we got more stuff to talk about, by golly.
All right.
And everybody out there listening, thanks so much for once again tuning in to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. They drop each Wednesday, folks, on any of your favorite listening platforms, as well as on YouTube. This is your host, Kim Langling. Thanks once again for tuning in and listening in and staying with us. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. And that is a wrap, my fearless friends. Thanks for bouncing along with me on another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I hope you're feeling a bit motivated and ready to take on any challenge that might come your way in the coming days. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Let Fear Bounce. Tune in each week for your dose of inspiration from my amazing guests from all over the world. So until next time, keep bouncing forward and stay fearless, my friends. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.